Hello, thank you for tuning in to repairmypc.brian.blogspot.com. You may also reach me at repairmypcbrian@gmail.com. Today what I'm going to show you how to replace a wireless NIC on a laptop. Now, however, all laptops aren't exactly the same. You can apply this knowledge that you're going to learn here across a broad spectrum of other laptops. This happens to be a Pisario F500 that I'm repairing for someone. So first off, what you're going to want to do is make sure that you're working on a clean surface. You're going to want to wipe down the surface here or just clean it, and particularly make sure that you're laying down a cloth or some type of protective material between you and the laptop. I don't recommend using any type of material. However, if you have something that's not going to produce static electricity, that would be best. Wear a static bracelet or be grounded either by one of your arms or have a metal ground near you. It just so happens that this happens to be a workbench that I use as a desk and a workbench, and I have a ground built in. So it works out great for when I want to touch it with my arm and ground out when I'm touching electronics or components here. So first off, what you're going to want to do is make sure that you get a screwdriver set. However, you can just use a cheap 99-cent screwdriver. You want to use a Phillips number 1 is typically what most laptops use. Number 1 is designated by the tip size. You can also use, sometimes you can use a number 2, however, it usually will say a number 1 written on the Phillips screwdriver here. I do recommend, if you have a chance, to go to a hobby shop or an electronics store or even a Home Depot or a Lowe's for that matter, and pick up a nice little Torque / Phillips / straight slot screwdriver set. And that way you can ensure yourself you can be able to get access to most cases. However, this one just happens to use a standard Phillips head screw. So what I'm going to do is remove this access bay here. This access bay actually is designated as the RAM. And the reason I know this is because it shows a little indicator as like a RAM chip here. Now, some of the access bays will have a picture, like this one has a picture of hard disks, and that indicates that the hard drive is located behind this access bay. Well, since today we want to get access to the wireless NIC, it's going to be located behind the RAM bay. Now, some laptops, some Dell laptops or older ones that I've noticed, the D series, actually have access panels designated for the wireless devices, such as the Bluetooth and wireless NIC. So what we're going to want to do, though, is remove this access panel here, because this is where the NIC is located. And for every laptop, it's different. However, for majority of them, you will find that the access panel for the RAM is also going to locate the NIC in that same access panel. So what you're going to want to do is undo the screws here. This happens to be 3 screws. Sometimes there's 2, sometimes there's 1. And you just want to be careful when you're lifting off this panel here that you don't pry it up too hard. Sometimes all the screws don't get removed out, but you don't want to break off these clips that are held on the back side. These are the clips right here, so you don't want to pull up from the wrong side. These clips will get broken off. So once that cover is removed, we're going to go ahead and remove the NIC. The NIC is located here, and the reason I can tell it's the NIC is because there's 2 wires, a black and a gray wire. Black and gray or black and white usually designates the NIC card. I can also see that it's a Broadcom chip and that it has a MAC address, although Bluetooth would also have a MAC address, and it could be a Broadcom chip also. The indication, though, is the black and the gray wire. Bluetooth typically has blue and white wires and would be located in the slot actually right here. And this laptop particularly doesn't have Bluetooth or a Bluetooth chip built into it. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this so you can see it a little bit better. Okay, so it kind of muddies up the quality of the video a little bit, but let's go ahead and see if we can remove these. What we're going to want to do is remove these 2 screws that are located right here. And let me see if I'll flip this over and kind of get a little bit better of a view of it. Okay, these are the 2 screws that you're going to want to remove here. This one here and one right located underneath this cable. So what you're going to want to do is first remove one of these cables, and by doing that you just kind of twist and lift up. Twist and lift up. And those cables are now removed. So you're going to want to go ahead and remove these 2 screws. And I'm not going to remove them all the way because this chip is spring-loaded, which is going to cause to release tension on it and keep the screws intact in the chip. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this from the slot. And by doing so, I have just removed the NIC. This is actually the wireless NIC. As you can see, this NIC in particular is a Broadcom chip. So once I remove this NIC, I'm going to go ahead and put it back in because I've already changed this NIC. So normally what you do is you can actually purchase another NIC online and replace it. Or, for example, if you have a spare laptop that you know the NIC is working in that you no longer need, or a parts laptop, you can remove it out of that parts laptop and put it in here. But this one's actually already been replaced. So I'm going to go ahead and just, for sake, put it back in here. And you want to make sure that you push down firmly and make sure it's firmly placed in that slot here. Now I'm going to slowly lower this back down and not press down too hard because I don't want the screws to pop back out. I'll have to go fishing for them down in the motherboard. Okay, so now that that's on, these wires are actually designated with little numbers here. They have number 1, number 2, and designated number 1 and number 2 slots up here. So what I'm going to want to do is put these back in the corresponding connectors. However, sometimes they won't be numbered, and sometimes you will remove them and forget. And one way you can remember pretty easily is most NICs here will have an actual little triangle. One will be a triangle filled in black. That is actually going to have your black wire connected to it. And the other triangle will be either filled in white or gray. So that'll be an indicator on which one to put where. So I'm going to go ahead and connect up wire 1 first. And sometimes you have a hard time connecting these, and what you want to do is just kind of rock it on there. And once you rock it, it'll kind of seat, and you'll feel it pop in and engage. So I'm going to rock this one on here. Sometimes they'll give you a little trouble because they're kind of not spring loaded, but they're a very stiff wire. Okay, and you probably heard that pop in. That's how I know it engaged. So also what you're going to want to make sure you do before you put back on your panel is make sure that this wiring guide here, that the wire is actually seated firmly in the wiring guide, and I noticed it popped out. So you're going to want to make sure it's seated firmly in there, because if you don't, for example, when you put back on this cover, you could pinch that wire and possibly damage it. And then that way, this actual wire runs through on the opposite side of your board, comes out at the top of your keyboard here, and actually runs on both sides of the monitor, all the way up the monitor, about halfway, and that's how it receives a signal and gets a good signal. So what you're going to want to do is go ahead and just lightly apply pressure back down on that cover, make sure all the clips are popped in place, and go ahead and tighten down the screws. I usually like putting equal tension on each of the screws first before I tighten it all the way down, but for sake of saving time, I'm going to just go ahead and tighten them all the way down one by one. Okay, and that's how you change a NIC on a laptop. If you have any other questions, please give me a call or leave a message on the repairmypcbrian.blogspot.com, or go ahead and give me a shout out on Gmail, which is repairmypcbrian@gmail.com. Thank you.